All right, here we go. Yeah, we have one person. Hi, mom. Maybe Marty's mom. I don't know. Oh, are you going by Martin or Marty?
You can call me Marty. I mean, Martin's my official, writing name. It's like
Yeah.
Martin Scorsese, Marty,
Yeah, yeah.
whatever.
Yeah. Okay, great. So I'm not going to blow that.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, we might as well just get started, and I think people will just kind of trickle in as we
Right.
go. But I am trying to remember how we originally met. I have this memory of having breakfast or lunch with you at City O City in Denver, and that was like after maybe we met at some event or something like that.
So,
This is 10 years
yeah,
ago, probably.
at least, yeah. I think I found out about you. I went to a writing thing at the Boulder bookstore, and Jamie Moye,
Okay.
uh,
Yeah.
she mentioned Semirad, and I was like,
Okay.
"Oh, that sounds cool." So I checked it out, and then you made this video years ago called 35
Oh,
about,
yeah.
um, did the voiceover and everything for that little short climbing vid. And I was like, oh, this is great. So, yeah, that was how I found out about you. But yeah, I remember that brunch well in Denver. And, and then I remember, coming to a reading of yours at Neptune Mountaineering.
Ah,
It
okay.
was a climbing book. Which one was that? It was about, like easy trad climbs or something.
Oh,
Mhm.
yeah. Oh, yeah. That's fun. Yeah, that's a buddy and I did that in like one of the worst book deals of all time. There was no advance, and we split the royalties, which amounted to, if we each had made $1,000 by this point, I'd be surprised. But
Yeah.
yeah, it's like we get checks for like $60 twice a year, and we always like text each other an image of it, and it's cute.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, yeah. And you've been writing kind of like you've been publishing stuff since then. Like I remember you kind of did like a fiction thing before Substack, pre Substack.
Yeah. Well, my idea, and I know you've been writing online for a long time, but it's always been in my mind that there are ways to reach people via social media for writing. And I know you've done that through like your cartoons and everything. And I was like, how can I write like a really short piece of fiction that might reach people that otherwise wouldn't be interested in it? Or I wasn't thinking I was going to be getting into best American short stories or anything like that. So I was like, okay, how long is an Instagram caption word wise? And can I write a short story that'll fit into that? And that's kinda how it started. So a buddy of mine would, like, illustrate, like, a little charcoal sketch drawing,
Yeah.
and I'd write a story in the comment. I called it 1-minute stories, and that was, like, my first foray into using the internet to, like, advance my writing, getting it into front of more people. Um, but also, like, I I was blogging a fair amount back in the day, for this company, this, like, apparel company I was doing. And I don't know, online writing was just cool, and it seemed like such a great way to get people in, and ever more so now with things like Substack.
Yeah.
Um, I think we can branch out and reach people who wouldn't necessarily identify as like quote unquote readers, which is very attractive. But I mean, what's your approach? Because you've written books, you've written a ton of online articles, all different formats. Are you writing towards a single person or a particular audience, or do you vary it depending on what you're writing, what format it's in?
Well, that's a good question. Um, yeah. Yeah, like I guess my newsletter, which is also on Substack, I kind of have these broad ideas that people want to hear something that's sort of at least tangential to adventure or parallel to adventure, has some mention of like the outdoors or something. Which I've heard back from people like, "Oh, I'm not a runner, so the running stuff doesn't really resonate or
Mm.
whatever." And um, gosh, I guess that's changed over the years too. But I guess I just never know. I'm kind of like, if I'm thinking this thing right now, and I can sort of put it into a narrative, maybe other people are feeling it too. And
Yeah.
if you have 1,000 subscribers and all of them read your thing, not all 1,000 of them are going to be like, "That was a home run this week, Marty.
Yeah.
Way to go. I really, really nailed it." Maybe like 10 of them will,
Yeah.
or maybe if you're really crushing it, 500 of them. But so you just kind of like, I kind of have these ideas of things that would fly and wouldn't fly. And then like the general, I guess I'm generally not trying to be the worst part of anybody's day. So it's like, you like, don't
And
talk shit, don't talk about politics, don't try to make fun of people, don't punch down, you can,
man, I feel that. I mean, there's so much good stuff to talk about and to bring good stuff into the world. Like, I have this point of, like, doing Google reviews, but I refuse to do negative reviews. Like, I only do five-star Google reviews, and I'm not gonna do it unless I feel good about it, because there's way too many people going out there to put on one-star reviews,
yeah.
so maybe that's my approach, five-star reviews in my writing.
Yeah. Yeah. What's the saying? Like, fuck yes or no. It's like, if it's
Yeah.
not, yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
it's
Like,
not a
why would
fuck
I?
yes, it's a no. Totally. But I think, that's what's so cool about, like, writing online, for better or worse, you can try all these different things, throw it out there, and then, um, if it doesn't work, it doesn't matter, because in 2 hours, everyone's gonna have completely forgotten about it and moved on, which is kind of a great segue into what we're talking about, self-publishing,
Yeah.
because so I reached out to you, I don't know, a month or 2 ago to ask for some advice on self-publishing because I know you've done that, and, my thought was that I've been writing essays on Substack for going on 2.5, 3 years now, and I just sort of got tired of writing things that resonated, but then completely got buried in ones and zeros before long. I was like, put a lot of work into this. They're not like timely enough that they're gonna be
Mhm.
obsolete here. So they're like evergreen. And I was like, well, what can I do to take advantage of the fact that I've put all this time and effort, all these hours into writing this stuff, and keep it relevant, keep it tangible. And I've been really curious about self-publishing for a while, going back to, like, the disruption online of different other creative industries, like music, for instance. Like, anyone can go on TikTok and put on a video of them playing music and then possibly get discovered by a label and go. But, and Substack's doing that to a big extent for writers, but it's like, how can I use Substack and leverage that to actually make something tangible, that is more akin to the traditional publishing path. Um, but so anyways, I'm really excited to talk about this stuff. But tell me, because I've know about a number of your books, but how many books have you published, and how many have been self-published versus with other presses?
Oh boy. It's like there's like 13 or 14. But I try to grab all the books I've self-published. And I think I'm still missing. I don't even have copies of like 3 or 4 of them
Yeah.
around. But I think I've had 7 or 8 books published with traditional publishers, and then I've
Mhm.
done a bunch of other ones just on my own,
Yeah.
um, self-published in various means. So, and you could compare the 2, and we could talk for 2 hours about that, just like
Totally.
what's the best way to do it. And I think for your purposes, though, like what you're talking about, I think the best piece of advice I would have is like, if you're thinking, oh, should I get a publisher? Should I try to get my work published by a publisher versus just self publishing it? Like, the publisher wants to sell 50,000 books.
Yeah.
If you're okay just being like, man, if I sold 500 copies, that'd be pretty amazing.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's way healthier. And you can do that. And when you self publish, you can set the prices. And like, I've
Yeah.
literally compared the first 2 books I ever had out, that one was self published and which got me a publishing deal with a small publisher. And I think I put together the statistics a while back for a talk I was giving. I think I get $1.27 for each copy of the book, the paperback that's published through a small publisher. And wherever I set the price on this one that I self-published, I get $5.13 per copy, right? And
Yeah.
of course, theoretically, they're going to help you sell the book, so more of those copies move. But like the
Yeah.
self-publisher, I still made more money. Like.
Totally, and I wanna get into this more in a bit here, but it's having complete creative control over everything. is really enticing too, and it's like the technology out there to pull it off is so much better. I mean, I
Mhm.
still think there's, I'm a big fan of hiring people who are professionals, whether it's the design or the editing or whatever, and
Mhm.
bring people, other creatives into the fold. But, and I've never traditionally published anything, but to give up all that is, it's got to really be worth it. And from what I understand, you still, even if you traditionally publish, need to do a ton of the marketing yourself. And so, what are you gaining? Sure, you're getting the expertise of the publishing house and all their people. But like I was saying earlier, I'm really interested in self-publishing because I want to take something that I know like no one's going to pick up all my essays from Substack and publish them. So it's like, okay, I have all this content, all these words I've written, and no one else is going to do it. So I might as well do it, see what it's all about, and explore this avenue. Because I do think it's getting way cooler to self-publish, and I made this comparison before that like self-produce a musician releasing an album is like indie, it's punk, it's super cool and it kind of always has been. But to like self-publish a book doesn't exactly have that allure, it's like, oh, you couldn't hack it, you couldn't make it in the traditional publishing world. Or like, as before I really got into this myself, that was always like my perception. And I think that's bullshit. Like, I want to make self-publishing cool, and I think that there's opportunities to do that. At least
Mhm.
move the needle a little bit that direction.
Yeah. I would say that's I feel a lot of what you said, but I would also say that there's probably a lot of punk records that were put out by DIY that really sucked, but we know about Minor Threat, Fugazi, like those guys like doing their own thing and like it's a
Yeah.
massive success, as far as DIY goes. But yeah, there were lots of people who were just like making albums and they didn't go anywhere.
Yeah.
I found them in used record stores, but like,
for
you know,
for there's a free bin to
for
just
sure.
take these. Yeah, and it's interesting too to like go on. I've been as I've gotten into the research on self-publishing. There's something like 4 million books self-published on or published on Amazon. Some are that includes traditionally published books.
Hmm.
But as I was researching this, you realize that a lot of those are people who are making 50 word search books a year to get out.
Hmm.
There's this thing I discovered called low and no content books.
Yeah, yeah.
And it's like, okay, I guess, you can compare what we're doing, actually writing a book and self-publishing it, to somebody who's going to give like a creative prompts, um, you know, dream journal or something like, and that's great. I have nothing against that, but you know, it's hard to compare, a full book of thoughts that we've put all this time into,
Yeah,
and somebody who's done that or a word search or whatever, um, kind of a different apples and oranges.
for sure. And they're like templates. You can just make that stuff and there's whole strategies around it, but I feel like that's people just wanting to make money a lot of times. Like I
It's,
made I made this one, which is a low content book
mhm,
or a no content book, and it's just called Fuck Off, I'm reading an audiobook.
yeah.
Um, and it's like just grid paper on the inside.
Uh,
Because I thought, people maybe don't want to be bothered when they're listening to an audiobook, so they can just do this.
right.
Um, and I made a PG version of it too, but like
Yeah,
I think if I've sold 50 of these, I'd be
yeah,
surprised. It's just
yeah.
like I think this would be funny and
Uh-huh.
whatever. But yeah. Um yeah, did you write down specific questions that you
I
want to
did. I
go with?
did.
Okay.
So I was thinking that it'd be cool to go through this maybe from a pre-launch, launch, post-launch category to just get some of your takes on self-publishing and what you've experienced in your career
Mhm.
doing stuff. Um, okay, so when I initially emailed you, I asked for two piece of adv- two pieces of advice. Wanted to keep it nice and tight. So the two things you told me were, one, get a book design program, and then 2, enjoy the process of making this because the sales and the impact are always a lot less than you would dream of or hope.
Yeah.
Uh,
No offense to your writing, of course, which I love, you know? So
oh,
I'm
yeah.
not saying your book's gonna be shitty, but it's like,
No,
you're
I
always like,
think
maybe your dream is just like you gotta step it down a little bit. Like, "Oh, yeah,
I
that's
think
still
that's a
an okay."
good, yeah, good reality check for
Yeah.
all of us creatives, until the big break comes, which, those 2 pieces are great, and I think they kinda bookend, like, this whole sequence of, like, pre-launch to post-launch. So pre-launch, I'm curious about, the book design. You suggested a program. Have you used that program? Have you designed all your books yourself? Have you ever outsourced that and hired an independent book designer? And, just general take on, like, what goes into the book design and how much that makes an impact.
Yeah, I mean, you can, yeah, the program I have used recently is called Atticus, which I
Mm.
think did I send you a link to it? It's like
Yeah, yeah.
$150, and
Mhm,
it's, um, the way I used to do it was download these templates that, um, Kindle Direct Publishing, Amazon's self-publishing thing had, and I don't think they've updated them since 2010, and anything you do in Microsoft Word, especially with images, is just
mhm,
so clunky. In this program, Atticus, I don't know how I found out about it, but I was like, I'll give this a try. It's like $150. So like
mm,
what I gotta sell 30 books to pay for that or whatever. And it is so much more friendly, user friendly. It's way easier. You lay out this book, you tell it like book dimensions, what size you want your book to be. Like
mhm,
it gives you these choices that are like it'll say which ones are like, considered to be like pretty common and bookstores will buy them. It also at the same time lays it out in ebook formats, which you can see as you're doing it. You can be like, what's
yeah,
it look like on a phone? What does it look like on an iPad? What does it look like on a Kindle Paperwhite or whatever? Which is amazing. It's doing all this in real time.
yeah.
And I'm actually laying out a book. I interviewed a bunch of dads, 40 different dads
Mhm,
over just before our guy was born, started interviewing them. He's 3 now, so it's taken me a while.
mhm,
But I'm doing that in that program, and it's so slick. It's like if you ever wanna do more than 1 book or if you wanna just do the 1 book, it's so
yeah,
worth it, I think.
yeah,
Um, I've never hired anybody to do the interior. I have a friend who does that.
mhm,
I've hired him to edit the book, like edit
yeah,
a book that I did, which is a really phenomenal value for me.
yeah,
The covers I have outsourced sometimes
mhm,
and paid people to do, and that can be really awesome especially if you don't have any sort of eye for design.
yeah,
A lot mine are just like super basic though. Like sometimes I'll just like draw an image and like pick out a font. Like this is just this cookbook that I wanted to make that I did halfway pitch this to an editor I've worked with, and she was like, "I don't think that's a real thing." And I was like, "Okay, fine." And I got it. I got 1,000 copies printed. It's called 15-second recipes. Like
uh-huh,
totally a joke. The illustration on the front is like a handful of Cheerios, So, which is a recipe you can cook in 15 seconds.
yeah,
I would say that like you can tell when you've hired somebody to do it when you're somebody like me, and you can tell when you didn't.
mhm,
Just because of the things the designer brings to it, and like we'll ask you questions about what do you want, like what do you want the aesthetic to be, who do you envision reading it, blah blah blah, and things that are just beyond my scope
totally.
as a word person. Um,
But then you're obviously raising the stakes of like, "Oh, I gotta sell a few more of these things to cover that cost."
yeah, a larger point I would say there is like you can spend money on this if you want to, right? It's like it's probably $100 to get the ISBN number that you have to get, you
Yeah,
know, whatever, that's fine. Um, and then you're spending your time on it. And
yeah,
like most of us have no problem spending like like a bunch of money on going to a movie or like the money people pay to watch NFL football, like on TV or in an actual stadium. This is not question, but like when you're like, oh my God, am I gonna spend $1,000 on making a book that I don't know anybody is gonna buy? It's like, yeah, you can do that. Like you can do that. You can build crappy furniture in your garage and no one's gonna buy it. You can use it. It's useful, but like I think as a hobby, making books is actually pretty awesome, and we forget that. And we're like, "Oh, I don't know if I should spend money and ask somebody to design it." And like, "No, do it, man. Like,
Yeah,
it'll be fun, it'll be really
totally.
cool." So,
And to, like, actually create something that you're proud of.
yeah.
It's worth it because 'cause you're gonna have we'll have these books for the rest of our lives. I don't know if anyone else will hang on to it. I'll certainly keep a copy of mine.
Yeah,
Um,
for sure.
and I like, I'd also say that writing can be a lonely affair, and at this point in the process to get a little more collaborative is
Mhm,
really enticing. Um So I before you sent that, email back, I had actually engaged a book designer who I met on Substack. His name is Nathaniel Roy, really talented guy, and I've been following him for probably a year or so, and just seeing, like, all the nuances that he gets into on his posts about book design. So I engaged him, and he did the cover, and we went back and forth, I think 3 or 4 times. Um, I teased it in the last post I put out, and it was awesome to work with him. I'm still working with him to get everything figured out. He's gonna do a help on the inside too. Um, and I was like, "Well, you know what? I He knows what he's doing. He picks up these nuances." And not that I'm trying to cover the fact that I wanna self-publish this, but I would like to be as professional as possible with the layout and, the how the copyright page is supposed to look and all this other stuff. And I think that's a big part of why I wanted to engage him as well, is to bring his not only his eye for design, but his understanding of what a book is supposed to be,
mhm.
um, from the traditional lens to bring it up a little bit, just like you would hire an editor to bring up the text itself. Um, it's been a good experience so far,
Mhm.
and, we'll see how it all plays out. But
Yeah, but, like, that's great, and, like, I think you'll have something you're really proud of in the end, and like, "Okay, this is" 'cause I see the stuff I put out, and I'm like, "Yeah, that's good enough."
yeah.
Like, I don't know how many readers notice those things. You're like, "What
Mm,
is it gonna stop them from buying your book?" But you might get more people if you have a professionally
yeah,
designed, like, "Oh,"
totally.
because so many of them 'em aren't picking it up in a bookstore first, we
Yeah.
think so much about the cover, but a lot of it is just, like, they're looking at it on the internet and be like, "Yeah, I'll buy that."
Yeah, yeah, right, so you're like, it's not gonna be on a shelf next to other books, but you're gonna see the thumbnail on Amazon, and that should be a little intriguing, hopefully.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure, for
Um,
sure.
I think on that note, I was just having this conversation, on the job site. So, as you know, I build houses for a living, and, a lot of people don't, pick up on certain details, like architecturally, when they walk into a house. But I think that if you know what you're doing and you have tradesmen and craftsmen and architects who are putting in that time and attention, it's throughout the house. It's pervasive, and it gives a feeling, and
Mhm,
you don't have to know what you're looking at to feel what you're looking at.
mhm,
And I think that same can be said for books or really anything else. Like, you don't have to know exactly why that layout is feels so good, but
mhm.
you will still feel that it feels right, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, so to pull it off in that way, I think can get there in a maybe a less tangible or quantitative way, but certainly the qualitative,
Yeah.
carries through.
Right, the opposite of that is me fixing something in my house and being like, "There's a gap in there," like, and me going, "Nobody's ever gonna notice that." Just
Yeah,
me.
right. Well, even as a contractor, you should see my house. It's like the cobbler's kids have no shoes, like the builder's house has no doorknobs,
Yeah.
It's weird.
I can barely read the chat, but I can see somebody said, "Can Brendan mention which of his recent books he designed with Atticus?" And, yeah, this one I did, this is the most recent one, and it's a lot of images in here that I drew, which was helpful. I would also say that when I laid it out, I had the font so small that I ordered multiple test copies of this and kept increasing the font size, which threw off the page count and all this stuff. And I was like, and I finally got it to a point where I'm like, okay, yeah, people can actually read this. But
Yeah.
I'm holding this book up next to like books that were published with a real publisher that I own, going, is that too small? Wow. So it's very experimental. But that one I did. I think I did this one too. This one's called Make It, um, which is also it's very similar. drawings and but those are the two I've laid out. And my wife is actually using it right now with a like a guided journal that she's designed, like putting together with the help of a book cover designer.
Yeah.
So
So you're
yeah.
saying it's important to get proof copies and check them out in hard copy.
Oh, I think it's like the best thing about self-publishing because
Yeah.
like both of the companies I use, you just click send me a copy of this, what's on there right now, and
Yeah.
it's in your mailbox in a week and a half.
Yeah.
And you open it up and you're like, God, that font is way too far to this side, or like the title's way too low or whatever. And you can actually see what people are going to experience as opposed to, I don't know if I'm sure real publishers get advanced copies. I've never really seen one until they're like done. I'm like,
Yeah.
oh, okay, I guess that's it,
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
One thing, so you wrote an awesome article comparing traditional and self-publishing that you sent me. So I feel like everyone should check that out too. But one thing you mentioned is like Amazon versus Ingram,
Mhm.
and it's curious if you've gotten your because bookstores generally right won't stock or be interested in books self-published through Amazon, but they will through books published through Ingram. So,
Yeah.
from what I understand, you've done both, and have you gotten your books into bookstores or tried to get books into bookstores?
Yeah, I do both with every time I do something new, I just put them on both. I, people hate Amazon. Of course I do too. But what I've learned from like publishing books over the years is a lot of people are going to buy books from Amazon. And if you want to sell books, sure you should. And honestly, I actually don't know the back end of the business, but the biggest complaint was that they drove prices down or would pay publishers less for books,
Mhm.
which I think probably if your book's in Costco or Target, it's probably the same rate now.
Yeah.
But so it's kind of like this necessary evil. I don't know what percentage of books are sold there, but from my like sort of research, I'll like have a book come out and I'll be like, here are all the places you can buy it, including local bookstores in like a lot of the markets where I think people will buy them. And it's still like probably 70-80% people are just buying it from Amazon, which fine. Like you got to go there to buy whatever, a new hair dryer. You buy my book too. Great. I'm
Mhm.
not judging anybody. So yeah, and Ingram is they supply all the books to like brick and mortar stores in the US. So it's like giant warehouses, wherever they are. And like when you go into your local bookstore and say, "Hey, this guy Martin Brodsky has this book out. Can you order it for me?" That's where it's usually would be coming from,
Yeah.
if it's a traditionally published book. But they also started their own thing called Ingram Spark or Lightning Source. I think it's called Ingram Spark, which is like it's the exact same thing that Amazon's KDP is, Kindle
Mhm.
Direct Publishing.
Yeah.
Just a little clunkier, and the customer service is pretty non-existent almost. Like they'll get back to you in like 10 days. So what I've always done is used all the Amazon tools to lay it out until I have a pretty solid, like where I'm like, okay, this is what it's going to look like. It's
Yeah.
cover's done. You know, um, there's cover templates on Amazon's on KDP that
Yeah.
I've used just because I don't know anything about layout, and I make my own book cover there, and then I just move everything over to Ingram when it's
Yeah.
done. Oh,
Just plug and play. Do
yeah.
and then have you as far as bookstores go, have you asked like do you go to like a local bookstore and say, "Hey, I just wrote this," and like will you stock it, or is it people have to go in and request it through the bookstore?
It's strangely like our favorite local bookstore down the street here, Shakespeare and Company. Garth just somehow just stocks my books sometimes. Like if I have a new one come out,
Hmm.
I did one event there in 2016, and I buy books there all the time,
Yeah.
But I like walk in, I'm like, oh, it's here, great. I'm like, hey Garth, thanks for stocking this.
Yeah.
But I've noticed he actually buys the KDP ones, so he doesn't have a
Oh,
problem with for some
interesting.
reason. I'm not sure how that works, but yeah, you can totally do that. I think the best way to probably do that would be to say, "Hey, I'm a local author. I'd love to come and do an event." I don't
Yeah.
know if I'm going to get 12 people or 4 or 40, but you know, I can bring books in and sell them, or here's the ISBN number, whatever. If you guys
Mhm.
want to sell the books, that's fine with me. And that's a way of just like getting, in your local bookstore. Sometimes they'll do stuff like they'll buy like 30 copies or 40 copies, and then you do the event, and they'll hang on to like 5 or 6 that are left over, but they'll ship the rest of them back, that's fine, whatever.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so
That's great. I mean, do you try to do a reading for when you release a book?
not not so much anymore.
Mhm.
It's not really the one of the things I figured out. I kept track. I did like 50 events when that book 60 Meters to Anywhere came out with
Yeah.
Mountain Wolf Books in 2016. And I was like hustling hard. Like, I think the smallest event was probably like 10 people,
Mhm.
which was the day after Trump was elected. So to drive from Denver up to Silverthorne and go to this gear shop, and I was just like, I'm not feeling this. Do you guys really? They're like, yeah, just go for it. I think I sold like 3 or 4 books,
Yeah,
but I realized, like, based on my rough math, I'd kind of like eyeball, see how many people were at each
yeah.
event, and keep track of how many books I sold. And it was like 1 out of every 4 people who comes buys a book.
Uh-huh,
So if you have
uh-huh.
40 people, you sell 10 books. So if it's a publisher publishing that book and I'm making $1 off of every paperback, I'm
Yeah.
like, wow, I just talked for an hour and then speed dated all these people and I made $14. It's kind of like, you don't do it for the money. It's more to like
Yeah,
remind people you exist, meet people in person,
yeah,
have fun with it. And yeah, I did events for the last book that I had put out, but it was in Arc'teryx stores, and they paid me an appearance fee to come to the store, so it was totally
okay.
worth it, no matter how
Yeah,
many books I sold.
yeah,
But it's more of a way of just like getting out there with your thing and getting to meet people and stuff like that, as opposed to being like, oh god, I sold 10 books. Why did I waste my
yeah,
time? And
for
so,
sure. Well, like I said, I think that was maybe the first time I met you in person was at
yeah,
a reading you did, and
right.
sweet, I wanna go meet this guy who I really like his work, so, here we are, 15 years
Yeah,
later, whatever.
yeah, apparently I didn't disappoint you enough. So, uh,
No, no. Alright,
yeah,
I have one, like, nitty-gritty question, with the ISBN, because I know Amazon provides it for free, but do you always or you can get a free one from Amazon, but then I think they're listed as the publisher. Do you do that, or do you buy yours independently? Um, how do you
yeah.
yeah.
I buy them from Bowker, Bowker, which is like
Yeah,
that's the company that sells them.
yeah,
And God, like a few years ago, I just bought 10 of them. I was
yeah,
just like, you know what? I'm gonna keep making stuff. So,
yeah,
but I think it's like $100 for one. And then, so if you have that ISBN, you can use it to make a book on KDP for Amazon, and you can take the same ISBN and use it for Ingram.
yeah, right.
And if
But
you use that free one from Amazon, I don't think you can make a book with it from Ingram.
that's from what I understand, that's yeah, totally.
So
But then you need a different one for ebook or any kind of a publication, like an ebook versus a, paperback, believe it or
I don't
different.
think I don't think you do.
Okay.
I think I think Amazon just assigns you the ebook one for free,
Right,
and I'm not sure what happens after with
yeah.
the other thing.
Would you always do an ebook version?
Yeah,
Yeah.
um, I think so. Yeah, because then you can take that ebook file and we'll put it on Gumroad, which is another. It's a digital publishing thing, but you
Mhm.
can be like, hey, it's $1, or it's free. You can just give it away on
Yeah,
Gumroad.
yeah,
And I think Amazon will only let you lower, like the minimum price is it's still pretty high. And it's handy for me to be like, if people support me on Patreon, I can give them free ebooks.
yeah.
Um,
Oh, totally.
yeah. And that's like, it's not, I'm not trying to like, if people are going to steal it, they've already stolen it. It's like,
Yeah.
it's already out there. It is. So
Mhm.
it's like, yeah, you can have it for, $1 on Gumroad or zero or
Yeah.
nothing.
Well, it's kinda like when, Radiohead released In Rainbows, and it
Yes.
was
Yeah.
like, you pay whatever you think it's worth,
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
if you think it's worth nothing, then you're gonna get it anyways.
Yeah.
The real fans are gonna pay. I think that's, like, a really cool way to do it. It gave me a lot of respect for them, and I think as an artist, it's a pretty cool way to go.
Yeah. Yeah. And like, I always like if you act from a spirit of generosity, I feel like it works a lot better.
Yep.
Even though you're like, oh, I lost, 50 people downloaded the free copy, so I could have made $250. It's like, I don't know.
Yeah.
A, maybe they
Totally.
wouldn't have downloaded it. Maybe they wouldn't have paid for it in the first place, or
Yeah, and I mean, it's kinda like on Substack when articles are paywalled and writers are like, "Hey, if you're in a position of hardship and you can't pay for this, just let me know, I'll send it to you."
yeah.
Like,
Yep.
I think that's really cool, and I kinda wanna do the same thing of, like, "Here's the book, if you really want a hard copy and you can't pay the $15 for it, like, whatever, I'll just mail it to you."
Yeah.
Like, kinda just wanna do that,
Yeah.
so people to read it more than anything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, and that's a thing, with a real publisher, they would say, what's give us a list of people you want to get advance copies.
Yeah.
And so they would be like, we got like 25 of them or whatever. And I would always negotiate for like, can you do like 50 or 100? And I want you to send me the box of books so I can ship them myself so I can write something in each one as
Yeah.
opposed to
Yeah.
just getting it from the. And with self publishing, you're like, I'll just get 100, send
Yeah.
them out to my friends, and like,
Totally. Well,
yeah,
and because I think that, like, I have, a few dozen paid subscribers on Substack, and I think I'm just gonna send I've already said I'm gonna and if you're a paid subscriber, I'm gonna send you a book. I same thing, I wanna send it myself so I can sign it, write a note, tell them I appreciate them because I do, and, get that personal connection. Like, bridging that gap from the online to the personal connection, I think is so key, especially these days
for
when
sure.
everything's mitigated through a screen, to have, like, a little personal touches is really cool. Alright, so that's actually a perfect, like yeah, go ahead.
Also, one more thing, not to like be super slick business guy, but like also not a bad way to get more paid subscribers. Be like, hey, I got a book coming out. If you
Yeah,
want a free copy of it, all you have to do is become a paid subscriber. And like
yeah,
you're probably what they have to subscribe for probably 2 months
yeah.
for it to like break even on you sending them a book. So it's like, yeah, whatever, man.
Oh,
Yeah.
totally.
Sorry.
And yeah, and then, like, and that kinda I think 'cause obviously I'm gonna keep pushing stuff up online well beyond this book's publication, so it kinda, like, also, yeah, not only gets more paid subscribers, but it lends itself to, like, more of an ongoing, relationship than this one-time purchase, which I think
Yeah.
is ultimately the goal is to have, like, a community built around, things that you share in common, the beliefs you agree on or disagree on or whatever.
Yeah, for
Um,
sure.
so, yeah, I'm glad you brought up advanced copies because now kinda, like, going into maybe, like, the launch portion of the book, do you like, what's your lead up to a launch look like? Do you send out advanced copies, and do you have, like, a marketing sort of, like, playbook that you follow?
I mean, kind of like no. It's been different throughout the years because, like, I've had books that I'm very excited about, and it's, like, literally the only thing I'm doing, but I think I've kind of, like the importance of selling books has sort of receded a little bit where I'm like, "Yeah,
Yeah,
I'll put it out there and, it's a thing because it's a product, right? You're asking people to buy a thing.
sure, yeah,
So, yeah, like, events are fun, but, like, maybe I'm not sure if they're that effective, like,
yeah,
it is effective in a lot of different ways where you talk about, like, "Oh, I just get to meet people in person, and they get to be reminded I'm a real person and not just,
yeah,
like, this person who, like, draws dumb shit on the internet or whatever." And it's fun to meet people and just chat with them for 2 minutes,
yeah,
as they're coming through the book line and get to meet them and hear a little bit about their lives and what's resonated with them. So yeah, if I was gonna launch something, I'd try to figure out a way to do a bunch of events. If I was
yeah,
doing it, say this fall,
mhm,
and I didn't have a 3-year-old at home, um, advanced copies. I just kind of try to make a list of all the people I think might be interested in it that I
yeah,
know of. And sure, if you have friends with a large social media following or a large Substack following, you're like, oh, I'll definitely send them one.
yeah,
And the thing that I don't do that's like a book publicist would send that person a copy and say, Pre pre-orders are extremely important. The book launches on November 1st. Please post something, tag us, between October 15th and November 1st. I never do that stuff. I'm just like, "Marty, do you want a book? Like, I got a book coming out. I don't know,
Yeah.
like, maybe you'll read it, maybe you're busy. I don't know, whatever. Here," and I send it out, and,
Yeah.
ideally, they love the book, they read the book, they love the book, and then they, like, maybe tell somebody about it or, like, maybe put something on their social media account or whatever. But also, it's like, I'm not you can't, like, ask for the sale with your friends, to be like,
Totally.
"Dude, were you gonna do anything for me for free?" Like,
Yeah.
it's like I'm like, "Yeah,
What,
I'm not
you know,
even
like the
asking."
guarded or the veiled ask of like, you don't need to do anything, but, if you
Passive
want to.
aggressive,
Yeah,
yeah,
super passive aggressive. What
yeah.
about I mean, how about reviews? Like, how important are reviews, and do you think it's okay to say, "Hey, if you read this, just leave me a review." Like, it doesn't have to be a 5-star, whatever you think, like an honest review.
Yeah, I think, like, the Amazon algorithm or whatever would rewards people if you get, like, 100 reviews or something like that. I think that's what people say, and, like,
Yeah,
I have straight up just been like, "If you wrote a review for this book, let me know, and I'll send you a sticker," or like, some other
yeah.
little thing, and that's a little bit of work, but it does help you get reviews. We did a thing so I had a book called I Hate Running and You Can Too, and it came out 2021, and we had this whole book tour planned. No, it was, like, too far in the pandemic. We are like, "I don't think we're gonna do any sort of book tour,
Yeah,
like, this is." And I was like, "Well, can I just get the budget and, have this guy, Toby, who he does old school letterpress stuff, like, they're, like, literally prints and assembles notebooks and
mhm.
all sorts of other stuff." He actually did this for me, but it's like they're bound, but not like a thick binding, but,
Uh-huh,
Mordecai Book Building is his business, and he's in Wisconsin, and I asked the publisher, like, "Can we make, like" I forget how many of these we did, but it was, like, these little running notebooks, like, running journals, like,
yeah,
if you wanna keep track of your stuff, and it was like, "Hey, if you order this book, send me a receipt, like, a screenshot of your receipt, and we'll mail you this. You have to be one of the first, I don't know, 150 people to do it."
uh-huh,
But there was no way of me keeping track. I wasn't gonna be like, "Okay, it's over." So
yeah,
people just, they bought A, they bought the book the day it came out, and B, when I sent the notebooks out, I was mailing them all myself from the kitchen table, like,
yeah,
printing off labels and being like, "Whatever," and I just, like, made these little notes and said, "Hey, if you like the book, put a review up somewhere, thanks,"
yeah,
So I got a ton of reviews just doing that, you know?
yeah,
This
uh-huh,
free thing comes in the mail, reminds you that you bought the book, whatever. And I've done, like, sort of things like that, but,
mm,
I don't know how important they are to, like, sales, honestly.
yeah.
I just don't know the books that people like you and I write or the people we follow on Substack, like, are people finding them via search on Amazon? Like, they're like,
And that's kinda what I keep reading about, like, the importance of, like, your first 48 hours of, like, the book going out, how, like, the algorithm boosts you then.
yeah,
And and that's what I had the same exact thought, like, I don't know who's gonna just be searching for what I'm writing on Amazon. I don't know, I've never done that in my life, just go search for books on Amazon. I mean, I'm sure people do, but
yeah,
it seems like it's gonna be a direct link to the sale if it
I think
happens.
so.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so, and then, like, how are people hearing about it? And, like, yeah, you gotta think you're like, how do I find out about books? And, like, that's reflective of what people's experience is gonna be probably.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's, like, more like, and, like, a lot of book publicists, they don't say this, but, like, you're the author is, like, the most important part of the publicity. Like,
Yeah.
sure, they can maybe get it in, the New York Times or whatever, but that's, like, probably not that common, especially the
Yeah.
books I write.
Totally.
All the publicists I've worked with are like, "Yeah, we're gonna get you on this morning show," or something like that. I'm like, "Really?
Yeah.
Me? Like, I'm not that good on camera, and also the book is, like, kinda weird. I don't think this is, like, Today Show material," you know?
Yeah.
Um,
Like, "Did you even read the book? Do you know what I read?"
yeah, of course I didn't. I'm a morning show host. I don't read
Yes.
books, It's like so I think I've, like, over the years, not to, like, rationalize not being successful, but it's like, what's the real point here? I like making books. I like it
Yeah.
when people read them. It's cool to connect with people, but, like, the I'm able to keep up with the amount of email I get from people who enjoy my stuff. It's great.
Yeah.
I can actually reply. and like
Yeah,
give people a thoughtful reply as opposed to being like, well, I'm too famous. I don't have time for this shit.
yeah.
So,
And
which
he's
is
one
a
of
really
those,
cool.
like, signature duplicators to
Yeah, yeah,
sign all these
exactly.
books. Um, but that being said, like, I think obviously we still wanna sell books.
Mhm.
Curious if there's any marketing tactics that, or guerrilla marketing tactics or anything that stand out to you over your time publishing books. I was like, "Oh, that was a different idea. That worked out pretty well."
Yeah, like the one I told you, was good.
Mhm.
The free notebooks,
Yeah.
and I have a solid chunk of people who support me through Patreon. So every time I have a new thing come out, I'm always like, "Hey, here's a link to the free book. It'll expire in like 2 weeks. So just like
Mhm.
if you want the free ebook."
Yeah.
And I've tried to like figure out how to make discounted like copies of the paperback available to people with Patreon, but it's really labor intensive and it doesn't end up saving. It's like really costly. So it's
Mhm.
almost like
Yeah.
just buy it.
Yeah.
I would say like when you talk about like events or like these um no, like when one of the books I did like scavenger hunts. I got like stuff sacks from Outdoor Research that I had been working with them, and I was like, "Can I get like just like a bunch of weatherproof ones?" And I would like take a photo of the book, put it in a stuff sack, and like put it somewhere and tell people where it was, and like, "Hey, there's a free book here, signed copy of this
Yeah.
book." And like I put one at a trailhead in Colorado. I put one in Central Park in New York,
Uh-huh.
and people would go and get these things in like 30, 45 minutes. It was crazy, and it was when I had more of a social media reach, but I think of those things, they don't cost much, but they
Yeah.
give you an excuse to talk about the book, to, like, mention it
Yeah.
again, and depending on who you talk to, like, people need between 3 and 7 touches to, like, buy a product.
Yeah.
There are people who are like, once they find out you have a book coming out, like myself, like, "Oh, Marty's book's coming out. I'll buy it. Boom," so I don't forget.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of people who are gonna need more. It's gonna have to hit them in a bunch of different ways, and,
Yeah.
like, maybe it's showing up at, the if you do events, like, publicizing the event is one thing, but it also publicizes the actual book to people who may not live in the Front Range, who follow
Yeah.
you or whatever.
Well, and I feel like that probably because like, one of my next questions was how shameless does your self-promotion need to be? And it feels like talking about what you're talking about right now, is that helps
Yeah.
reduce the shamelessness of it because 'cause you're like, "Oh, I'm actually excited about giving a talk here or hiding this book in Central Park," or whatever. So it's not like you're just, shamelessly hawking the thing. Uh,
Yeah. It's more like this Midwestern sensibility of, like, bugging people. But,
yeah,
God, do they really. So, I think if you can find a way that it's fun for you to do, and
yeah,
B, the piece of marketing is itself something additive to them as
yeah.
opposed to, like, just talking about the book, because that's annoying as shit, right? It's just like, "Hey,
Oh,
I got a book coming
totally.
out." It's like, would you be like, if social media was like a party you were at or a bar, and all you talked about was your book, like,
Yeah.
for an hour, to literally everybody you talk to, they'd be like, "That dude is so annoying, like, get him out of here."
Oh, yeah.
But if you're like, "Hey," if you have something else to talk about, or, like, here's a, free excerpt of the book, here's me
Yeah.
reading the book, here's like me, I don't know, like, doing the recording of the audiobook, like, things like
Mhm.
that, little behind the scenes, or, like,
Yeah, it's like as long as
story.
you're adding value,
Yeah.
continually adding value, then it doesn't feel like shameless has such a negative connotation because it's just like, it's the guy at the party.
Yeah.
But when you keep adding value although there is this aspect, like, I got an email earlier this week from my high school that was, the alumni association that was like, "We're looking for class notes, like, tell us what you're up to." And I was like, "Should I just write that I'm just published a book or I'm publishing a book?" And I've been, like, sitting on it for a few days, and I'm like, "Yeah, fuck it. I'm gonna totally say that, I'm doing this." Like, it feels a little bit impostery, but whatever. I haven't seen anyone from my high school for years, so I don't care, you know?
They might find it anyway, dude.
Yeah.
But yeah, like, yeah, it's like And you don't know. I think a few folks I've gone to high school with have read some of my books over the years, and, like, that's great, and, like, we
Yeah,
probably have more in common now than we had back then, but
totally.
yeah, I know, it's people say shameless, but when they say shameless, it means they're ashamed of it. They're like,
Yeah.
"Sorry to bother you, but I wrote a book. You might like it." And, like,
Mhm.
yeah.
And and
So
it's like, that's kind of, because I do the same thing, but I kinda like it better when I see someone like, "Hey, I wrote this thing, check it out," like, with a little bit more confidence, and
mhm.
even though it's not like my natural state to, like, talk about myself a lot. I think
Mhm.
that, again, going back to, like, where do I find books? Like, what do I like to hear when, somebody's talking about something they did? Like, embody that a little bit more than this, like, yeah, well, if you have the time," it feels better to say it, but it does not feel better to receive it, to hear it.
Yeah, yeah.
Uh,
Yeah. Yeah, and, like, some of the things I've done over the years have been like, "If you know someone who would like this book, please tell me their name or tag
mm,
them," and it's
yeah, yeah,
like then it's this selfless act where it's like, "Oh, it's my friend Jeff would love that," as opposed to being like, "I want free stuff," because people will do like, they will take the most irrelevant free shit, like, it's crazy. They'll be like, "Oh, yeah, I'll take a book," and, like, they get a book in the mail, and they're like, "I don't read books. What the hell did I say yes to this for?"
yeah,
It's like but if it's like, "Hey," if your friend Jeff is a recovering alcoholic or whatever, is in therapy, like, story would resonate with him, okay, I'll send it to you,
yeah, yeah,
uh, which is also selfless on your part to, like, send it out, but, I feel like the giving it away at the beginning is hopefully I'm always optimistic about it. I know people
yeah.
are like, "Oh, I don't have the money to just, like, throw it away and, like, send copies to people." It's like, you never know, so
Yeah, I totally, because for whatever, the few bucks to get your own copy from these self-publishing companies, and then, however, a couple more bucks to mail it,
mhm.
but just call it 10 bucks. It's like, you never know, like, that person could be the one who breaks the whole thing open,
Yeah.
um, and that's why I
Yeah.
think it's, like, and it worth the investment if, somebody's like, "Oh, just will you send me one? I can't, I don't know if I can do it or, like, buy it." I'm like, "Yeah, sure. I'll send it to you," because it's like a connection point at that
Yeah.
at that point. Um,
Yeah.
and I think I love the idea of just being collaborative with it and generous with
Mhm.
it, and coming at that with a genuine attitude and being sincere about it. Not like, "Oh, really? I just wanna know," like selfish altruism, or something. Like, I just genuinely want you to have this if you wanna have it, and with no expectation of anything in return.
Yeah.
'Cause that's when things actually, like, return, it seems like.
Yeah, the less attached you are to the idea of it making money, the happier you're gonna be with it, I think, it's like,
Yeah.
oh, it's like a bonus, and, like, I
Yeah.
get these check deposits from, all this stuff, all the things we've talked about, like KDP and Ingram, you just wire your checking account or and they just put money in it every month, and you get these little reports, and they're hilarious. Like, I got one yesterday, it was from Ingram, it was like, "You made $1.40 off of a book that somebody in Italy bought," it's like it's just comical, you're like, "I don't even know what I can buy with $1.40," but it's so funny, it's like, "Yeah, I'm a big famous author, made $1.40," but then at the same time, you're like, "Somebody in Italy bought that book," like, that's
Yeah.
crazy. So it
Yeah.
becomes this little tiny, and the more of these books you have in the self-publishing thing, it becomes
Mhm.
this, like, sort of, passive income, and,
Yeah.
okay, if I can just buy dinner for my wife and I, once a month, that's pretty sweet, but a lot of times it's more than that around the
Mhm.
holidays, so
Mhm.
but
Totally.
it's comical when you're like, "Wow, I was being stingy with the advance copies, and now it makes, like, $14 a month." It's like it's just funny, like, make it because you want it to be out there, and you wanna see what it's like to actually what it takes to produce it, and you want that thing to have in your hand.
I was thinking about it, it's like, I think we all know, we all get into the things that we enjoy, and it's easy to look at other people out there in the world and say, "Oh my gosh, how did you do that? How did you come up with a business idea, act on it, put it all together, and now you're out there successfully running a business, whatever that means. Maybe you're making a lot of money, maybe you're just breaking even, but it's like it's still admirable. But I think that, I like to write and I want to make a book. And yeah, I've been putting a lot of work into not only the writing of the book, but getting everything together to actually make it reality. And I think that there's a lot of people out there who the way I might look at that hypothetical business person might look at, you or I or anyone who's trying to self-publish a book and be like, "Wow, you actually wrote a book and made a book." I think it's like equally, um, something to be impressed by or whatever. Not that I'm like trying to impress people, but it's the point is I think it's easy to overlook the things that we're doing because we're like in the trenches just doing it. Whereas like, we're actually making things happen. We're making something real based upon what we're into, what our passions are. And I think that's really cool. And the opportunity that self-publishing has um, given all of us to make that happen is pretty amazing.
Oh, it's super fun, man, and, like, I think, the book I had that has sold probably not that many copies, but it's gotten me more emotional paychecks than anything, and it's about substance abuse and, like, it I, like, lost money probably on all the hours I spent writing it and all the hours I spent, like, trying to do these book events and, like, all the money I spent traveling because I thought that was the way to do it and, like, get it out there, and I'm like, it's been out for 9 years now. I don't give a shit. It's awesome to still get an email from somebody and be like, "Hey, man, I was going through a rough time and, like, this really helps." And like, "Wow, okay," you know?
Yeah.
And you get the email and you're like, "Did this happen for, like, 4 or 5 other people?" For every email I got, are there 4 or 5 other people who read it and had a good experience but didn't write? Because
Yeah.
probably, So it's like we never know with these things. I know I don't write every single author when I'm reading their book going, "This is amazing," or like, "I love this sentence." I don't sit down and write them a fan mail, which I probably
Yeah.
should, but you're out there, your work's out there in a different way. So,
Totally. I mean, and going back to, like, the review thing, I remember I worked at Patagonia in college, and, which was a great gig because there was cool people and I got, like, a bunch of gear, and I remember them saying that, for every, one person who says something good about it, like, you'll get 10 people saying negative things, and that's kinda why, maybe the
mm,
basis for why I like to leave five-star reviews and not one-star reviews. But I do think that, yeah, like, to your point, that when you get an email from somebody saying something positive, it's like, there's a lot of people out there who are probably thinking similar stuff, and I think, as we discussed, as a rule, we're not trying to rile people up in a negative way, so
mhm.
not soliciting the negative heat on it, but, yeah, I mean, ultimately, that's the payoff is connecting with people and writing things that make people perhaps think a little differently or think in a way they haven't thought before. I mean, that's awesome.
Yeah, and to get enough positive feedback that you feel like still doing it, like,
Yeah,
"Okay, I'm gonna keep writing because
yeah,
this is" I got enough likes on my post or enough book sales or whatever it is. It's like, okay, that's a
mm,
gift in itself, right? Like,
yeah,
how many people's hobbies do that for them? So,
totally.
yeah.
So with your, like, I guess last, like, bookish related question, like, so you got your whole backlist of all the books you've made. At some point, do you just kinda let those hang out on your backlist, and if people order them, they do? Or do you ever, like, talk about, books you wrote 10 years ago? Or you usually
Gosh,
focus on
no.
the one whatever you're working on now?
Yeah, no. I'm like, I think about it. I'll be out running and be like, oh, that's like a year. It's been out for a year. I should probably like do some sort of social media post, and I forget
Yeah.
about it. I'm like, it's fine.
Yeah.
Because
Really.
as you keep doing Substack, like people remember that you have this book
Yeah.
out, or you plug it at the end of
Yeah.
your post, your most recent essay or whatever, or they find it through your bio or whatever, and like people are still buying them. Like
Yeah.
maybe not by the hundreds or the dozens. Like I can literally see how many people bought this book this month. And it's like yeah, maybe there's 10. I don't know. That's
Yeah.
amazing. You know.
Mhm.
Um, So, yeah, and to that point, I think it was at least 6 months after I put this book out. You know, every time you have a book come out, people will be like, "Is there gonna be an audiobook?" And you're like, "Dude, do you know how long it took me to write this book and put it together and get it out?" And, like, I'm not and I finally last year, I was like, "Fuck it, I'm gonna record an audiobook." Terrible idea. Like, I
Yeah.
did it in this room, which is a shed, and we live, like, 4 houses down from a fairly busy street, so I could only record from 9 to, like, 10 p.m.
Yeah.
And it was like every time somebody came by with a loud truck, I had to, like, stop and start recording again, and, like, the whole editing process of it,
Yeah.
were I to go back and do it, I would just go to a studio here in town. It would probably
Yeah.
take 2 days of recording and cost me $700 or something like that.
Yeah.
Um, but I think about that audiobook is gonna reach so many people who maybe don't know about my stuff.
Yeah.
And it's sort of this, like, this you put out a paperback, you put out an audiobook, it's an advertisement for the rest of your work, you know?
Mhm.
So people go back and read more of your Substack because at some point, your book's gonna be a year old, and there's gonna be, like, 30, 20, 30 other new Substack essays you've put out since then that
Yeah.
people can go back and read. So it's this sort of self-propagating thing.
Yeah, I totally, and I think that it's to go back to music, which I do all the time, so I'm gonna just keep doing that. It's like you find out an artist's, new album or something, you're like, "This is great." So all of a sudden you go back into their catalog and you buy their debut album and all this other stuff and, like, can see the whole evolution. I think it's amazing to have this whole, history of your work, and people can
Yeah.
appreciate it, especially if you're like, as you do, get really thoughtful and personal with what you write. Like, you can see, your own journey as a human, and that's what else do we want but to see other people's, journey as fellow human beings, and, like, that opportunity is there,
Yeah.
um, which seems like a really great thing about, the way self-publishing is structured because you're not sitting on 100 books in a warehouse somewhere or in your, closet. It's just
You can though, if you want. You can
yeah,
order that many and just
yeah,
ship them out, like, whatever.
yeah,
But yeah, no, it's good to not have all those sitting around for sure.
mhm,
But yeah, it's fantastic. Yeah.
yeah,
We should probably wrap this up, huh?
yeah, yeah. Well, this is great.
Yeah.
Um,
Did we answer your questions that you
I
had?
you
Is
did.
it
We're through
okay,
it. Yeah.
awesome.
Um,
Um, one last thing I was gonna say is that I always forget to do this, but, like, in the last page of your book as you're laying it out, there's,
uh,
like, a lot of people put an author bio in there.
yeah.
I would do one more page that says, "If you enjoyed this book, please consider leaving a review." I've
Mhm.
remembered to do that once in the entire
Yeah.
doing this stuff, and it really helped. But,
Yeah.
like, it does people will do it, especially if they're reading it on a Kindle, because it's so
Yeah.
easy. But, yeah, that'd be my last tip.
All right. I like that one. Great. Brendan, thanks so much, man.
Yeah, thanks, Marty. This is awesome. I'm glad you said yes to this.
Yeah, thanks for setting it up.
Okay.
All right.
Thanks, everybody, for joining. I'm gonna bail and get out of here.
All right.
Alright, take care, Marty.
Bye.